Well, that didn't take long, did it? Just after it was announced the Director of Communications, Lee Kane, a Brexiteer, would be leaving Downing Street, we've now reportedly had it confirmed that Dominic Cummings will be following and will be out of Downing Street by Christmas. I think this has huge ramifications in terms of British politics and potentially in terms of Brexit. Stay with me, guys, as I report on all the very latest. And of course, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the bell so you don't miss future reports. And you can support my work by giving a big thumbs up to this video. And of course, becoming a supporter by hitting the join button below. Would really appreciate your support. Now let's get into this. As I reported yesterday, Lee Kane, 1 minute, was tipped to become the Chief of Staff to Boris Johnson. And the next minute was resigning completely from Downing Street. This is important because this is what's referred to as the vote leave contingent, including, of course, Dominic Cummings. And we now hear that he is also going to be out of Downing Street by Christmas. Reportedly, this was always the plan from Cummings. But let's just remember one very important thing here. Negotiations with the European Union are ongoing. They have not concluded. Boris Johnson has not walked away from the negotiations, as he said the UK would, by the 15th of October, if no deal was on the table, i.e. no deal agreed with the European Union. And as easy as it may be for some to overlook, this could have huge ramifications. For instance, is this a sign that a deal now with the EU is all but guaranteed in the eyes of the British government? That in fact, there won't be a no deal, that in fact there won't be a clean break from the EU. I think that's a point really worth analysing. The potentially what this tells us about Brexit, about the state of negotiations with the EU, and about where we are with Boris Johnson and this government. I'm going to go through all of this right now. Let's start off with the Telegraph. Dominic Cummings is at the beginning of the end of his time in Downing Street after he lost a close ally in a bitter power struggle within Number 10. Sources said on Thursday night. The Prime Minister's chief advisor signalled that he could be gone by Christmas, having said that his plan had always been to make himself largely redundant by the end of the year. Cummings was left hugely weakened after Boris Johnson effectively called his bluff over the resignation of Lee Kane as Director of Communications. He had allegedly threatened to walk out immediately if Mr. Kane was allowed to go, and said half a dozen staff would follow him, but he failed to carry out the threat, leaving him diminished after the bruising civil war. Asked about the rumours that he'd be gone by Christmas, Dominic Cummings told the BBC, "My position hasn't changed since my January blog," when he wrote that he intended to make improvements to the Downing Street operation that would mean he was no longer needed by the end of 2020. Johnson's Brexit policy advisor, Oliver Lewis, who was in lockstep with Cummings, was said to be close to the brink, and colleagues fear he will resign as Brexit trade talks are concluded. It seems to me here, guys, that this is all pointing towards a deal being done with the European Union. One ally of Mr. Kane said, "This is the beginning of the end of Dom. Lee is the person who has been covering Dom's flank 24 hours a day, and he will soon be gone. Oliver Lewis is utterly loyal to Dom, and it looks as though he will soon be on his way as well. Eventually, Dom will be off." One Whitehall source quoted as saying in the Telegraph, "Dom has emerged from this as a diminished force. The balance of power has shifted because we know Dom in Number 10. We now know Dom is in Number 10 because he wants to be and not because he is indispensable." And as I said, the wide range of reports today saying that Cummings will be gone by Christmas. And I laid this out yesterday. But I do think having around Boris Johnson people who fought for Brexit, who campaigned for leave, that matters. And the fact that the Brexiteers all seem to be leaving Downing Street now, I think, is highly significant. Tom Newton-Dunn of Times Radio. Senior government figures confirmed Dominic Cummings resigned today following his close ally Lee Kane out of the door, and will leave Number 10 before Christmas. This was agreed with the PM in a meeting this afternoon. Goes on. "I'm told his last roll of the dice was to try and persuade Boris Johnson to appoint Number 10 ally and his deputy Cleo Watson as the PM's Chief of Staff. Boris again refused, and it was then agreed that he would leave. Figures close to the PM tonight say he has finally grown tired of all the fighting and was also very disappointed by the Vote Leave clan scheming over the last 48 hours, as well as by the lockdown leak. Appears Boris has at long last decided it's time for a new broom. The final straw for the PM appears to be the lockdown leak inquiry, which Number 10 insiders say is leading to Kane and Cummings as an attempt to bounce him into it. No conclusive evidence yet, but it is being seen as breathtaking disloyalty. It apparently wasn't the first time. I just want to bring your attention to this report from Steerpike of The Spectator. Is Carrie Symonds running Number 10? That's a question that's been asked in Westminster this week following this week's events. I'm not one for Westminster tittle-tattle. I don't know. What I would suggest is the fact that those sort of outlets are even asking that sort of question is highly significant. Nigel Farage linking to a story in the Times by saying, so the Leavers are leaving Downing Street. Bad news for Brexit as the Tory party goes green. And indeed, it does seem like the focus of the government is going to be changing slightly. And I say it again. Does this mean that a deal with the EU now is pretty much done? Because it seems to me this is a government that isn't preparing for no deal, isn't preparing for a clean break. Perhaps I'm wrong. Let me know what you think though. This is the Times report. Dominic Cummings is to leave Downing Street by the end of the year, signalling an end to the dominance of the vote leave camp in Boris Johnson's administration. Dominic Cummings is quoted in this as saying, rumours of me threatening to resign are invented. Rumours of me asking others to resign are invented. But here's an interesting aspect. Boris Johnson is planning to use the changing of the guard to reset his premiership, to putting an end to the culture wars, promoting the green agenda, and taking a less dogmatic approach to the union. Let me know what you think about all of this. As part of a new strategy, which is backed by his fiancée Carrie Symonds, the Prime Minister will seek to soften the government's image and rebuild relations with MPs. One Downing Street source said Johnson wanted to build liberal, global Britain and take a softer and less dogmatic approach to Scotland, making the positive case for the union. We've got to make it more than just about saying no to another referendum, they're quoted saying. The Prime Minister is also expected to push hard on his green agenda, which is strongly supported by Ms Symonds. He is expected next week to give a speech outlining a 10-point plan to tackle climate change, including bringing forward a ban on petrol and diesel cars from 2035 to 2040. Another source said Johnson would step back from the so-called culture wars with institutions such as the BBC, which have been pushed by Cummings and Kane, but I've seen as damaged support for the government. So there you go. No mention there of Brexit. As I say, does this mean a deal is basically done and dusted? But instead of looking at seriously ending the BBC licence fee, it seems, it's full pursuit of the green agenda. Let me know what you think about all of this. I know a lot of you voted for Boris Johnson, the Conservatives. Let me know what you're making of all of this. And I did ask my supporters what they make of Cummings' imminent departure. And by the way, if you want to support my work, would really appreciate it. If you want to click join and become a supporter of the channel, really appreciate your support. Darren's saying, and I think some will share his sentiment. He mentioned he's leaving 10 months ago, I think, referring to Dominic Cummings. I think the infighting, Darren says, is because they know Boris will cave in. It's too late to get a good deal, so Bojo will take anything. The mainstream media are so happy they think Xmas has come early. As I said, guys, Brexit negotiations are ongoing while seemingly the Brexiteers are leaving the Prime Minister's inner circle, leaving Downing Street. Fascinated to know what you make of all of this. And of course, if you've enjoyed this video, do give it a big thumbs up, please. Do consider becoming a supporter by hitting the join button. And of course, as ever, thank you so much for watching.